Hello everyone, today we're looking at my Rupture bow build. In my opinion, this is easily one of the most broken builds out there right now, because of how insanely strong the Rupture mechanic is. Since my previous video related to this build, which I posted some time ago, I've learned a lot and made many adjustments. In this video, I'm going to show you all the improvements I did. Now before we jump anywhere, I would like to talk about Rupture and how I'm proccing it and everything about it. Now, Rupture deals percentage damage. Against normal enemies, it deals 30% of their maximum HP. Against bosses, it deals less, although I have no idea as nowhere specify how much less it is. You cannot scale Rupture with genetic stats like increased total damage or increased damage. However, anything related to Rupture will directly scale its potential. The other thing we have to understand is that I'm proccing Rupture from the talent Eviscerate, and the cooldown of the proccing is 0.4 seconds. This talent is the core mechanic that enable our Rupture build to function. Now because of this, there is important things that needs to be considered. First of all, it's increase maximum bleed stacks. Second of all, it's stack as much as possible ailment chance. And third of all, it's apply bleeds as fast as possible. These three main components to make this build successful ensure that we are reaching the maximum potential of Rupture proccing from the talent Eviscerate. All the three main stats are very much complemented with the Rogue tree. Rogue tree is the best tree to stack ailment chance, to increase maximum bleed stats, and to increase the Rupture damage. The next very important component here, it's the bow that you're going to use. We have to understand that the bow needs to be pure pierce damage only, because only the pierce can proc bleed. The second thing on the bow is roll as much as possible base ailment chance. As we can see from the photo, this is my bow currently, and I have a really high plus base ailment chance. Additional thing on this bow is the strike damage. Yes, we do not care about any flat damage or any hit damage. However, strike applies stagger. And stagger slows the target movement and action speed, which is especially helpful against bosses or any tough enemies. Now later in the video I'm gonna talk about gear, charms and talents, so let's move on to the next thing. Currently the best abilities that can proc Rupture, it's Rain of Arrows and Trick Shot. Now let's explain why. The reason why Rain of Arrows is because it hits multiple times very quickly with increased ailment chance, making a top ability to proc as much as possible bleed as fast as possible. I calculated and I beat the final Act 3 boss for 31 seconds using only the Rain of Arrows. Now the second ability is Trick Shot, providing fast stacks of bleed with additional bleed effect that apply bleed stacks every second. The effect lasts for 3.5 seconds, rapidly refreshing our bleed stacks and applying new ones. I calculated and I beat the final Act 3 boss for 37 seconds using only Trick Shot. And now you might ask yourself, but why then you're using Trick Shot? Why don't you just use Rain of Arrow? Because the combination of the two result that I killed the final Act 3 boss for 25 seconds. And we have to understand why. Every single 3.5 seconds I was refreshing the dot effect from the Trick Shot while constantly spamming Rain of Arrow. With all the combined ailment chance, I'm constantly refreshing the stacks and applying new ones, which is constantly proccing Rupture. And without the Trick Shot effect, this was going to be less effective, making combination of these abilities the best. With my current setup, I wanted to test how often I was proccing Rupture, so I review a boss fight frame by frame. In 15 seconds fight, I managed to proc Rupture 23 times. This means that I'm proccing Rupture approximately 0.65 times per second, and the threshold limit is 0.4. Maximum bleed stacks limit appears to be 20, which currently I am missing 3 maximum bleed stacks. Some ailment chance on the bow and necklace is also missing from my build, which means that once I increase my maximum stack of bleeding and ailment chance, I'll be able to proc Rupture even more frequently, resulting the threshold of 0.4 procs per second. And here comes the interesting part. In the future, I need to calculate my ailment chance and bleed application speed. Very careful. If it's under the 0.4 second limit, any additional investment become ineffective. But at the moment, there is nothing to worry about. The next very important component, and this is something that we should all consider, my suggestion is to invest in bleed duration. the bleed dots damage itself is very small compared to rupture damage, so the raw bleed DPS doesn't matter at all. However, what I discover is this. If bleed duration is longer, I maintain maximum stacks more consistently, maintaining maximum stacks resulting in more consistent rupture procs. This was confirmed during my frame-to-frame testing. When I remove talent bleed duration from Eviscerate, which increased the bleed duration, my rupture proc rate dropped significantly. Without duration talent, I was proccing at 0.82 per second. This result to be considered way worse. So even though bleed damage itself is small, bleed duration is very strong stat because it stabilizes your rupture uptime. Alright guys, I think it's time to explain the character a little more in detail. In this section I'm gonna talk about gear, charms and talents. The most important stat that I'm looking for based on all the gear, this is mana regeneration as top priority, energy and ailment chance. Let's say that I found a necklace that has increased ailment chance, but doesn't have energy on energy regeneration. In this case, I'm not gonna equip that necklace, even if it possesses one of the most important stats for this build, because other important thing is that you don't run out of mana, so you can cast the ability that actually does the damage. So energy regeneration is very important. Everything else related to ailment chance. The bow, like I said before at the beginning, very important, that possess only pierce damage as the implicit, and has base weapon ailment chance increase as much as possible. The stat that you will like to look for is strike damage and increase ailment chance or ailment duration. This is basically what you're looking for, and the rest of the gear, armor, health, resistances. As I said from the beginning of the video, we're looking for increase as much as possible ailment chance and bleed stacks. This is perfect with the rogue tree. Everything that provides you with these particular mechanics, it's taken. And of course, Rupture. For the warfare, it's completely self-explanatory. We need Eviscerate in order this build to work. As we can see, whatever we apply bleed, based on the bleed stacks, we have chance to cast Rupture. And everything else is related to tankiness, because warfare is pretty nice choice for extra HP, aka tankiness. So yeah, this is basically it. For the auras, battlefield awareness, I go for energy regeneration and reduce the energy reservation for this particular aura. The same applies for preparation, but here we're looking for ailment chance increase. Next, I'm using Valor because it provides us with lots of ailment chance, 150%. Also provide us with movement speed, so that's pretty nice. And now the two main abilities we are using, Rain of Arrow. We make sure that we can include as much as possible waves. We want to make sure that we have as much as possible bleed chance, and we want to make sure that every single Rain of Arrow hit will increase the chance that enemy will be affected by bleed. And for the rogue tree, this is the new thing that I discovered, and I'm actually really happy with this discovery. I never thought that trick shot will be so powerful. As we can see from the beginning of the video, 80% of the time I'm using only trick shot to burst down any mob that I'm encountering. So obviously more ailment chance. We want to make sure that this is actually performed with our ranger weapon, because the ranger weapon adds plus 9% base weapon ailment chance. So this is super important that you pick up this talent in order this to work even better. And we have to understand that more projectile speed makes it even better, because usually trick shot without this talent doesn't travel long distance. Now with this talent you can hit monster from very far away. This provides debuff on enemy every second that will apply bleeds. I think this alone applies around 6, 7 or maybe 8 bleeds per tick, and pretty nice. This is actually one of the top talents for this build. So this is basically everything. If you have still some questions, something is not clear enough, you can always comment in the comment section below, and I will make sure to answer your questions. So now let's jump into the rating of this build. Alright guys, it's time to rate the build. And first parameter that I'm gonna rate the build, it's boss DPS. I already included in We Are the Boss, for the simple fact that we're killing the last boss on Act 3, level 70, that possess couple of millions of HP in around 25 seconds. So that's pretty decent. However, it's not better than the summoner build that I demonstrated in the previous video. Alright, the next parameter that we're going to rate the build, it's clear speed. The build is really shining when I'm fighting really huge packs of monsters, because of Rain of Arrow it has good AoE, which means that maybe 90% of the time we're actually hitting every single one monster of the pack, applying lots of bleeds and cast Rupture. For smaller packs, I'm usually using Trick Shot, and Trick Shot it's applying so much amount of bleed stacks that the Rupture it's very easily procced, and it's way more faster than the Summoner's build, so I think the Rupture build is way faster clearing than the Summoner build. The next parameter is how tanky it is. Yes, we are combined with Warfare, which provides us a lot of HP and HP regeneration. However, I'm using a light gear, and the light gear doesn't provide that much defenses, but B tier for now it's pretty decent spot. Now the next parameter is fun, and let me tell you that I have way more fun fighting with this build than the Summoner build. So for me it's super fun, and it will be staying here for now. Now the next parameter is how easy it is to build it. It's not the most hardest, but at the same time you need to look for a lot of things. You need to look for amulet with increased energy regeneration, you need to look for a helmet with energy regeneration. About the potion with energy regeneration is not that crazy, but you know, if you need good items from the amulet and helmet, could be more harder to be found. The bow, on the other hand, it's relatively easy. The next thing that you need a lot of charms with energy regeneration, so they're not very easy to find. They're dropping from the ghosts, and you're not fighting so many ghosts to have it immediately, so especially 2 actually, or 3, depends if you would like to put it in every single one of your jewelries. So it's not the most hardest, but it's not the most easiest either, but it's not very hard to build, so I think 8 tier it's perfect for this build. Alright, the next parameter is leveling experience. Now this build it's not very easy to be leveled, but it's at least fun. Well, I'm not saying that it's not easy. Well, you don't start with Rain of Arrow immediately. I specifically started with Sweeping Strike that I modified to be Whirlwind, and then invest in Vitality dot damage. This carried me all the way until I unlock Rain of Arrow. Then include a lots of ailment chance, and I try to deal as much as possible bleed damage, because we don't have immediately access to Eviscerate talent. So we can see how this goes. And before I even pick up the Eviscerate talent, I was focusing on Preparation Aura to help me apply Plagues, which is another damage overtime effect, which makes everything more easier to do. It's kind of fun, the whole journey, but it is not the most greatest in my opinion, because the build starts shining all the way once you have 30 divinity in Warfare and 30 divinity in Rogue Mastery, and that's take a lot of time. So that's the main reason why we're putting in a B. And now the last parameter, this is the overall build rating. I think the build is great once it's made it, but the Rupture mechanic is so broken right now that this deserves to be at the broken list next to the Summoner build. Summoner build it's way better with DPS, and I do believe that both of those builds are in the radar to be nerfed or somehow balanced in the future, but currently this is my opinion related to this build. I'm putting it in broken because this is what this build is. Alright guys, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all healthy, stay positive, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.